adventure, far places. Who doesn't long to travel to see the things we've never seen and do all the things we've never done?
Preservationist John Muir once said, "In every walk of nature, one receives more than he seeks." In industrial America, people found this hard to understand. However, gradual change occurred. Following the harmful industrial era and the actions of several conservationists, Stephen T. Mather took a stand against the mistreatment of national parks and their destruction. He created the National Park Service in 1916, which allowed people to learn about, enjoy, and further improve America's lands. It all began in industrial America in the 19th century. The U.S. had begun to move towards manufacturing, building upon industries such as mining and timber to benefit the economy. The smoke of factories polluted the air and chemicals contaminated the water. Immigration also caused problems. From 1830 to 1880 alone, 9 million immigrants came to the United States. This meant more available cheap labor, which encouraged industrialization, and more urbanization to allow for a bigger population. America's beautiful lands were hastily destroyed in order to keep growing. Niagara Falls was already one example of a failure to preserve an incredible landmark. Here is a political cartoon originally published in Puck magazine in 1906. Though this is a clear exaggeration, it represents private owners buying and destroying Niagara Falls. In order to persuade people that America's lands needed to be preserved, they had to be shown the lands. James Mason Hutchings led a group of Americans to Yosemite Valley in 1855 in hopes of starting a tourist hotel there. He was able to attract tourists with the help of writers like Horace Greeley, who wrote, "I know no single wonder of nature on earth which can claim superiority over the Yosemite." John Muir convinced President Lincoln to sign the bill to enable 60 square miles, including Mariposa Grove and Yosemite Valley, to become state property on May 16, 1864. Railroads also assisted by making it easier for Americans to go to California and observe the numerous national parks. The Union Pacific and Central Pacific Railroad companies had finally completed the Transcontinental Railroad May 10, 1869. Leading to the arrival of many people to the west. Also, a great boost in American tourism can be credited to the See America First campaign. This slogan was first coined in 1905 by Fisher Harris, a hotel manager and a member of the Salt Lake City Commercial Club.
But unless we protect these areas currently held by establishing a separate government agency, we may lose those to special interests.
The railroads spread the campaign showing off Western America. Now there were lands designated as national parks for public use. However, there was little organization. Several presidents came into the story as they signed acts which helped clarify this new idea of national parks. President Harrison signed the Forest Reserve Act, allowing presidents to set aside land as national parks in 1891. President William McKinley signed the first national wildlife statute called the Lacey Bird and Game Act in 1900. And President Theodore Roosevelt, after visiting Yellowstone and also Yosemite with John Muir, signed the American Antiquities Act in 1906, making destruction of American antiquities illegal. Meanwhile, the conservationist movement rapidly grew in success, and tourism exponentially multiplied. In 1909, there were about 61,000 recreational visits, and the next year there were about 173,000 recreational visits. Management of parks was the problem, so Stephen T. Mather stepped in. Stephen T. Mather was originally a partner in the Thorkildsen Mather Borax Company, where he became a millionaire because of his astounding sales marketing techniques. Mather had always been interested in nature. He had bipolar disorder, and the wilderness was a nice, calm place for him to relax. He had become a member of the Sierra Club, in which John Muir was also a member of. With Muir, he visited Sequoia National Park in 1912 and later in 1914 Yosemite National Park. Mather found himself in shock over the poor conditions of the national parks, and he mailed his concerns to a friend, Secretary of Interior Franklin K. Lane, who replied by telling him that if he was concerned, he should go try to manage the parks himself. Mather was determined, and he went over to Washington, D.C. as an Assistant Secretary of Interior, and on August 25, 1916, the National Park Service was created through the National Park Service Organic Act, which President Woodrow Wilson signed. Stephen T. Mather became the first official director of the brand new National Park Service. This is the point where being a millionaire came in handy. He convinced his wealthy friends to fund the national parks, which Mather used to purchase land. He even purchased land himself and paid salaries out of his own pocket. Horace Albright became an important figure involved with Mather. They complemented each other well. Albright was well connected with the government and could carry out administration well, while Mather's admiration and enthusiasm for the national parks converted the minds of many Americans. With Mather's superior marketing skills and abundance of money, he worked with automobile companies like Ford Motor Company to make the parks more accessible to tourists. He also hired editors like Robert Sterling Yard, a writer for the New York Herald, to publicize the beautiful parks. One day, Mather decided to take a group of 15 influential Americans, including politicians, writers, and businessmen, on a trip of the Sierra Nevadas. This group was called the Mather Mountain Party. He treated them well by giving them air mattresses and even professionally cooked meals. At the end of his trip, he gave the speech which moved all 15 of these Americans, who went on to spread the word. Mather himself benefited from the vast wilderness. He was prone to constant depression, and he often visited the parks to feel better. His reign of expansion of the national park system ended in 1929, and a year later he passed away. However, his stand against the mass industrialization of America has proved to be impactful in many ways. Immediate impacts include the creation of several new national parks all across the United States, including Mount McKinley, the Smoky Mountains, Grand Teton Peak, and the Everglades. Several people were also inspired by Mather to take action. One example of this is the Civilian Conservation Corps, created in March of 1933. The Great Depression created a mass of unemployed workers, so the CCC was created by Franklin Delano Roosevelt as the solution to the job problem as well as the environmental issues. These corps mainly consisted of young men from around 18 to 25 years old who worked on both private and national lands, doing a variety of jobs from simply planting trees to fighting fires and building flood barriers. There were also several acts to expand as well as further organize the American lands. The Preservation of Historic Sites Act in 1935 expanded the National Park Service's control to include historically important buildings. Mission 66, a goal set in 1956 by NPS Director Conrad L. Worth, improved and organized the national parks by 1966. In 1968, the National Trail System allowed for the creation of walking trails to make the visitors' experience more safe and enjoyable. Looking at the National Park Service 100 years later, Mather would be proud. The National Park Service has grown technologically but has stuck with its same values. There are now 879 visitor centers, and in 2015, over 307 million people visited those centers. The National Park Service partners with several foundations, businesses, tribes, and other groups which help it fund and properly manage the parks. Although the NPS has expanded, its retained values can be seen in the mission statement. The National Park Service preserves, unimpaired, the natural and cultural resources and values of the national park system for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations. Stephen T. Mather was no ordinary person. He was a man with a passion for the wilderness, an excellent publicist, an enthusiastic influencer, and a superb businessman. Though the conservationist movement consists of countless sacrifices and actions of many people, the creation of the National Park Service is the tipping point of the movement.
1,000 miles is no obstacle, and even those who have only a week or two of leisure find it possible to enjoy these great national parks. Why not make them the scene of your vacation adventure? Be sure you have a modern, dependable automobile. Then go wherever you choose with safety, comfort, and economy.